The island of Iwo Jima, small yet strategically vital, would become one of the bloodiest battlegrounds of World War II. On the 19th of February 1945, American Marines landed on its beaches, expecting to swiftly overpower the Japanese defenders. What they didn't know was that beneath the black volcanic sands of Iwo Jima lay a hidden nightmare. An intricate labyrinth of tunnels, caves, and bunkers where thousands of Japanese soldiers lay in wait. This underground fortress, meticulously constructed by General Kuribayashi, would transform the battle into an unimaginable war of attrition as the Marines fought not just against soldiers, but against the very earth itself. With the fate of the Pacific War hanging in the balance, the struggle for Iwo Jima became more than a fight for land. It was a contest for control of life and death beneath the surface. At first glance, Iwo Jima seemed like little more than a barren speck of volcanic rock, but for the Japanese, it was sacred ground, the first piece of their homeland to be attacked by the Americans. The island held a strategic position, allowing Japan to warn its forces before American bombers reached the heart of the empire. For the Americans, seizing Iwo Jima was a stepping stone to victory, a way to secure a lifeline for crippled bombers and a launchpad for future assaults on Japan itself. But no one could have anticipated the horrifying battle that would unfold on this tiny island. The U.S. Navy, under Admiral Chester W. Nimitz, assembled a massive invasion force for the assault. Task Force 58, consisting of 15 aircraft carriers, bombarded Iwo Jima for days before the Marines landed, but it was the island's underground defenses that would prove the ultimate test of American resolve. As the Marines surged onto the beaches, they discovered not just resistance, but a nightmare beneath their feet. Iwo Jima was about to reveal its deadly secret. The battle for the island was not just being fought above ground, but in a vast, unseen world of tunnels and caves. As American forces stormed Iwo Jima, they soon realized that the battle was unlike any they had faced before. General Kuribayashi had transformed the island into a near-impenetrable fortress, one designed to force the Americans to pay in blood for every inch of ground. Underground, Kuribayashi's engineers had carved over 11 miles of tunnels, connecting hundreds of bunkers, command centers, and sniper positions. From these hidden chambers, Japanese soldiers could launch surprise attacks, disappear into the dark recesses of the island, and reappear elsewhere to continue the fight. The Americans, initially confident in their overwhelming firepower, quickly learned that their traditional tactics would not work here. The Japanese defenders, operating from deep within the tunnels, were able to remain hidden from the devastating bombardment that had flattened the island above. Each assault that seemed to destroy a pillbox or machine gun nest was met with renewed fire from an unseen enemy. The Japanese had adapted to the war in a way that no one had anticipated. They fought not just with weapons, but with ingenuity, creating a war fought in the shadows. In the face of this relentless and invisible threat, the Marines had to adjust their strategy. The initial hope was that the bombardment would soften the defenses, but the Japanese soldiers were too well prepared, too hidden. Their resolve was unshakable. Kuribayashi's strategy was clear: drag out the fight, make the Americans suffer, and inflict as much damage as possible to delay the eventual invasion of Japan. He knew the island's fall was inevitable, but he believed that by holding Iwo Jima, he could force a delay in the American timetable for the invasion of the Japanese home islands. For the Marines, the psychological toll was immense. The silence of the beaches, once filled with gunfire, was replaced by the eerie quiet of hidden Japanese soldiers waiting in the shadows. The island itself felt alive, like a coiled snake, ready to strike at any moment. As the Marines pushed inland, they encountered fierce resistance not only from above ground, but from deep within the earth, where a vast network of tunnels turned Iwo Jima into a twisted maze of death and destruction. It wasn't long before the Marines realized that the true battle for Iwo Jima was not being fought on the beaches or in the hills, but in the bowels of the island itself. The dense network of tunnels was a battleground like no other. Armed with flamethrowers and explosives, Marines had to go underground, inching their way through narrow passageways, often in near-total darkness. The danger was constant. Japanese soldiers could strike at any moment, from any direction. One by one, these tunnel rats ventured into the darkness, risking their lives to clear the island. What they found was both horrifying and surreal. Entire chambers had been carved into the volcanic rock, where the Japanese had lived, eaten, and fought for months, preparing for a battle of attrition. These underground fortresses were equipped with medical supplies, food, and ammunition, allowing the Japanese to survive in relative safety while the Americans waged war above ground. But the toll on the Marines was brutal. The close quarters fighting, the fear of ambush, the suffocating heat, and the constant danger took a heavy toll on their morale. Some Marines never returned from the tunnels. Others would emerge physically and mentally scarred, their faces haunted by the horrors they had witnessed. The deep sense of foreboding that gripped the Marines was not just due to the unseen enemy, but the realization that they were fighting a war in which surrender was not an option for the Japanese. The defenders were prepared to die rather than give up, and they had vowed to take as many Americans as they could with them. The first signs of the scale of the sacrifice began to surface as the Marines made their way deeper into the island. Whole groups of Japanese soldiers had barricaded themselves inside bunkers, determined to fight until the last man. Some chose to end their lives in a final act of defiance. The Marines found themselves caught between the brutality of combat and the psychological toll of facing an enemy willing to die to the last man. The smell of death, the sight of bodies stacked in their final moments, would linger with these men for the rest of their lives. As the battle dragged on, the Marines' resolve was tested like never before. The situation on Iwo Jima seemed to defy logic. The island had been subjected to one of the heaviest bombardments in history, yet the Japanese soldiers remained hidden, waiting, watching. The Americans were forced to adapt again and again, using bulldozers to seal off tunnel entrances or resorting to flamethrowers to force the Japanese soldiers out. But each new strategy came at a cost. Many Marines were killed in the process, their bodies left behind in the unforgiving tunnels. Despite the brutal resistance, there were signs that the end was near. By the time the Marines reached Mount Suribachi, the island's highest point, they had fought for every inch of ground. The famous image of the flag being raised atop Suribachi symbolized a moment of triumph, but the battle was far from over. The Japanese defenders, though isolated and dwindling in numbers, continued to fight with fanatical resolve. For the Marines, each victory felt like a hollow one, as the cost of life continued to climb. The island, with its barren black sands and jagged volcanic ridges, had become a symbol of both courage and despair. As the final pockets of resistance were crushed, the Marines knew they had taken Iwo Jima, but the price had been steep. The scale of human suffering, both among the Japanese defenders and the American invaders, would be impossible to forget. The true scale of the devastation could only be understood by those who had been there. Over 6,800 Americans had died in the battle for Iwo Jima, and more than 20,000 Japanese defenders had perished, many in the depths of the island's tunnels. The toll was immeasurable, and yet, despite the horror, the Marines had succeeded in securing the island, which would play a crucial role in the final stages of the Pacific War. Iwo Jima's legacy is one of sacrifice, courage, and the price of war. For the United States, the battle marked a pivotal turning point in the Pacific conflict. The island became a vital base for American bombers, allowing the U.S. to strike directly at the heart of Japan. But the toll on the Marines who fought there was immense, and the psychological scars from the brutal combat, particularly within the island's labyrinthine tunnels, would last a lifetime for many. The battle also marked the beginning of the end for Japan. Although the Americans had secured Iwo Jima, the cost of the victory left a deep mark on those who fought there. In the years following the war, veterans returned to the island to pay tribute to their fallen comrades and to reflect on the unimaginable horrors they had faced. Iwo Jima remains a solemn reminder of the costs of war. The island, now home to a U.S. military base, is